You guys all ready? Everybody's set? All right. Just real briefly, hi, thanks for being here. My name is Jeff Kirkpatrick. I'm a lieutenant with the Medford Police Department and our public information officer. You're not going to hear from me today. Today you're going to hear from Chief Justin Ivins and Chief Deputy DA Patrick Green. So after they give their prepared statements, we'll give about 10 minutes for questions. Some rules on some questions. Just make sure you state who you are, who you're with, and then who you're addressing your question to. We're going to try to keep that as short as we possibly can, so we're going to limit that to about 10 minutes. There may be questions that can't be answered, so please be aware of that. If one of these folks say that they can't answer that question, they can't answer that question. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Ivins.
Okay, well, as Lieutenant Kirkpatrick mentioned, my name is Justin Ivins. I am the Chief of the Medford Police Department. Just to recap today's arrest, today around 12:30 p.m., detectives from the Medford Police Department took into custody 36-year-old Danny Marie Schofield. She was lodged at the Jackson County Jail, 44 counts of assault in the second degree, and she currently has a bail of over $4 million. This arrest occurred without incident. It occurred in the 5,000 block of Rogue River Drive outside the city of Eagle Point. These charges are the result of a 7-month investigation that was initially reported to the Medford Police Department as a drug diversion incident occurring at the Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center here in Medford. This investigation has been presented to a grand jury yesterday. That led to the indictment and today's arrest. First thing I want to mention is our thoughts are with the victims, their families, and all those who have been impacted by this investigation. My hope is today's arrest brings just a little bit of closure in what they have suffered and gone through. Second, I want to commend and thank the investigators, our support staff, our supervisors, who worked tirelessly on this complex investigation. Our investigators reviewed thousands and thousands of pages of medical documents, conducted nearly 1,000 interviews with doctors, medical staff, and victims. From the time the Medford Police Department received this investigation, we immediately assigned 2 detectives and 1 supervisor to work this case. I'm truly humbled each day the work the men and the women of the Medford Police Department do. This investigation began this past December when we were contacted by Asante officials. Asante leadership came to us with concerns over a rising number of central line infections they were seeing with patients within their care. Asante conducted an internal investigation which isolated these infections to a specific time frame from July of 2022 to July of 2023. They isolated the location of where these infections were occurring within the hospital, the ICU unit, and to 1 employee, Ms. Schofield, who had access to all of these patients. The concern by Asante leadership was that Ms. Schofield had been diverting patients' liquid narcotics and replacing them with tap water in an attempt to go undetected. Ms. Schofield left employment with Asante in July of 2023 when these incidents were ultimately discovered. Asante's leadership felt that Ms. Schofield's actions were potentially criminal, therefore leading them to bring this investigation to us, resulting in these criminal charges. I do want to say that Asante has been a good community partner throughout this investigation. Their assistance in this matter is a big reason that we're at this stage in the criminal process. In closing, MPD recognizes that there's been substantial public and media concerns surrounding this investigation. Several of the victims identified through this investigation have passed away. Each of these incidents, along with pathology reports, medical reports, have been reviewed by medical experts and medical examiners. It was agreed upon that the infections these patients suffered from could not be determined to be the cause of death. However, as a result of the investigation, it is believed that Ms. Schofield's actions caused physical injury to patients who were under her control and care. At this time, the Medford Police Department's investigation is completed. It will now be referred over to the Jackson County District Attorney's Office, who has been ringside from the start of this investigation. I want to thank all of our community partners, everyone that assisted and was consulted in this investigation for their support. This time I'll turn it over to Chief Deputy District Attorney Patrick Green.
Thank you, Chief. As the Chief alluded to, I've been involved in this case from when the Medford Police Department was briefed on it by Asante. I've always shared the community's concern about this case, and I want to echo the Chief's sympathies to the families that have been affected, the victims that have been affected, and hopefully this does provide the start of some closure and justice for those people that have been affected and their families. As the Chief mentioned, this case was presented to a grand jury yesterday, and they indicted Ms. Schofield on 44 counts of assault in the second degree. The Jackson County DA's office, we received this case after the Medford Police Department completed their investigation in April. We started reviewing it at that point. The prosecution team has been made up of myself and two of our senior deputy district attorneys, Alyssa Klossman and Mike Cohen. That prosecution team yesterday presented testimony and evidence from 21 witnesses to the grand jury, which convened for a total of 8 hours over the course of yesterday before deliberating and deciding on the charges in the indictment. These charges represent the highest level of charge the evidence in this case can support. As the Chief alluded to, in a prosecution for any degree of homicide, whether it be murder, manslaughter, or criminally negligent homicide, the state, the prosecution, is required to prove that the actions of the person charged were the cause of the death of the victim. Investigators in this case consulted with numerous medical experts who were all unanimous that they could not conclude that any of the patient's deaths were directly attributed to the infections. And so that's why you do not see any of those charges. So I want to be clear on that. Now that this case is pending, I'm very limited on what questions I can answer and what facts, other than what's contained in the press release, that we can get into. I can tell you Ms. Schofield's next court date will be her arraignment on the indictment, which will be scheduled for tomorrow at 1:45 p.m. in the circuit court. Thank you.
So this time we'll open it up to questions again. We're going to keep this rather short, and please address who your question is for, your name, and who you're with. Yes, thank you.
I'm Justin Higginbottom with Jefferson Public Radio, and this is to anyone that can answer it. Those 44 cases, did all of those patients have an infection related to the drug diversion?
All 44 counts in the indictment allege that Ms. Schofield caused serious physical injury to each of those victims. And so there are 44 different named victims, and they all had infections that occurred in the ICU, yes.
A couple?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Sure. I'll get you back over here at the podium if I can. What does the $4 million bail say about the nature of this case, which is otherwise just an assault case?
I think that is representative of the number of charges in this case, and of course each of those charges are Measure 11 charges. So with 44 Measure 11 charges, each carrying a mandatory minimum sentence of 70 months in prison, I think that's why you see that bail amount.
And She's the only suspect listed in today's material of the arrest. Is this the end of this investigation, or are there other suspects?
No, that concludes this investigation. No other suspects.
You'd mentioned that Asante was, your phrase was a good community partner. Is that because it reported at the outset, or was it cooperative all along? I'm not sure local lawyers have had the same kind of cooperation that maybe MPD has.
Yeah, they've been extremely cooperative throughout this investigation. I think it says a lot that they brought it to our attention to start with. But then as the investigation continued, we never did get any pushback from them on anything that we needed from them to assist with it.
Well, this might be a combo answer, because today's material deals with an individual, and you say that concludes the investigation. Your finding then is there's no criminal liability by Asante Hospital?
Yeah, so there is definitely two sides. There's a civil side to this and a criminal side to this. We're obviously, as a police department, are involved in law enforcement and dealing with that side. So this individual's being held to what we believe is criminal acts that is responsible for the injuries to these patients. As far as the other end of that, and Asante's responsibility in that, that's a civil issue that obviously we won't get involved in.
The arrest
I'm
happened.
going to move to somebody else, Jerry.
Sure.
Buffy, go ahead.
Okay. The court documents show that the list of the alleged victims that were impacted occurred between July 23rd of 2022 or July 25th of 2022 or 23rd, and then also the same date in 2023. Did they only go back a year in the investigation? Was there a statute of limitations involved, or did they go back? Some of the local firms had indicated that they had victims that they had confirmed prior to 2022. So I just wonder if the investigation only went back 12 months.
Well, we'd be still inside the statute of limitations based on the charges, but I'll have to defer to Patrick on that if he knows the answer. I don't know the exact answer to that.
That's correct. The statute of limitations on these charges is 3 years. So, I don't know the particular question and specific regarding the investigation.
Yeah, why that date? I don't know if that's...
I can follow up with you later.
Okay, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Is there any indication why the nurse was allegedly diverting the fentanyl, whether she was selling it or using it for personal use, and if she had an addiction issue herself?
You know, I'm not going to get into her personal life, but obviously, you know, I don't believe that Ms. Schofield probably went into the medical field initially to do this by any means. So, you know, make your own conclusions based on that. I think at some point in her job, she lost purpose in what she was doing and led to this, which is truly tragic.
And any indication what she's been doing since she left Asante, whether she was perhaps employed in healthcare again, or what she's been doing in the meantime?
I don't believe she's been employed in healthcare, but outside of that, I don't know what she's been doing. We have attempted to talk to her in regards to these allegations, and she has retained an attorney.
So does that mean MPD has not talked to her?
We've attempted to talk to her, but once they retain an attorney, we can't question her anymore.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm asking, because I thought, yeah, whether she had said what maybe, if she said anything to him.
And I can clarify with you later, Jerry, on that, because it's in the press release that we made contact with her very early on.
Well, Chief, you'd said that there were several who died, even though their deaths are not part of the charges. What is that? What's the number there?
So I reached out to investigators today, and I was told that the number was 16, most of which died while in the hospital, several which have passed away since being discharged, and then numerous that were ultimately, once this was discovered, was treated, and were discharged from the hospital.
I'll keep asking if I may. And maybe the one, what constitutes a second-degree assault?
So there's actually multiple ways that multiple theories that constitute second-degree assault. In this particular theory, it's charged that she knowingly caused serious physical injury to these individuals. So, I think that answers your question.
I didn't know if it was because it wasn't direct contact with the person or, yeah. But okay.
Okay, yeah, last question, thank you.
It's been described as a fentanyl diversion case. Could you confirm if it was in fact a fentanyl diversion case? And could somebody speak to the suffering of the victims who weren't getting pain medication when they were seriously injured, or the suffering from infections they may have acquired?
You want to take that?
I have heard, obviously, I've been briefed throughout this investigation, and I've heard fentanyl. Could there be other narcotics that I'm unaware of? Absolutely, but commonly I have heard fentanyl. As far as exactly what each individual victim went through, I do not know the answer to that.
Would Mr. Green like to say anything about that?
No, what I was going to say is that those are facts that I can't comment on due to the pending nature of the case.
All right. I'm going to stick around for a little bit. If you guys have any follow-up questions, I'll speak to you individually. But that will conclude us for now. Thank you all.